Hey, what's up? It's Phoenix and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I encourage you to hit that like button and to share with your friends and subscribe for more quality content from Phoenix. I'm very excited because today I'm going to talk about my favorite metal albums of the year 2019. So without further ado, let's dive right in. The first album on this list is We Are Not Your Kind by the supposed new metal band Slipknot. Slipknot through time has developed their own heavy sound and have at times even been described as being extreme metal, and they certainly have a lot of heaviness, and this album is no exception. While I think that they had slowed down a little bit of their style in the Gray Chapter, I feel as though this album in a sense is a return to form, such as hearing sounds that you might imagine in subliminal verses. And I really liked how they were able to do that, always being true to their roots while always moving forward. The first standout track on this album is Unsainted, and I really like that song for its kind of anti-antagonist message, so to speak, where Slipknot realizes that they are speaking for people who don't always fit in the norms, and who may be a little bit of a misfit, but who are nonetheless very passionate and emotional and intense and powerful, I would say. And so one of my favorite lines in that song is, "You killed the saints in me, how dare you martyr me?" And the idea behind this is pretty self-explanatory, and I see this as a misfit daring to push the boundaries and daring to be unsainted and to be the opposite of a saint, for lack of a better phrase. And I find that to be a very powerful idea. They also have their song Birth of the Cruel, which is an interesting song as well, kind of going in their opening, da-na-na-na-na-na-na, da-na-na-na-na-na-na. And I'm not sure what instrument they used to capture that sound, but it's really interesting and it captures an intense kind of pummeling heaviness. Overall, I found Slipknot's album to be quite an offering, and I very much enjoyed it. As I said before, I loved the heaviness of this album, and it was anticipated for so long that when this album came out, it was much more than I had even anticipated. My favorite song on the track is probably Soul Way Firth because of its intensity. And I love that song because it captures beautiful melody while also capturing the heaviness of Slipknot. The next album that is on this list is Fear Inoculum by Tool. You may have known that they came out with their box set, which was about $55 and which was worth every penny, especially when we had been waiting for an album for 13 years. And wow, what do I say about Fear Inoculum? Certainly I engaged with the theme of daring to inoculate yourself from fear, daring to inoculate yourself from the destructive tendencies that humans can fall into at times. And so the opening track, Fear Inoculum, was a very interesting opening because it had just enough of a less complex feel, even for Tool, who are usually very complicated. But in this song, there was enough of a simplicity, but enough of a complexity that it was the perfect mix. And so it wasn't too daunting, and it was in fact very interesting the way that they did the song. My favorite song on the album is probably Pneuma, because it talks about the beauty of innocence and of daring to free ourselves from the world and to delve into the spiritual realm. That was even what Pneuma means, which is kind of spirit, or the kind of freedom from spirit, freedom that you have from your spirit. And I really liked that song. And that song was about 12 minutes, I believe, and about 10 to 12 minutes. And then there are other songs throughout, such as Invincible, which has a very nice beat, as well as Descending, which has a very catchy rhythm, a very catchy riff, I would describe. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. And it's really interesting how they do that. So I would recommend Fear Inoculum for its complexity. I say that they amped up their complexity in this album by having literally 12 to 13 minute long songs, or even longer. And all of their songs are jam-packed with all of the things that make Tool interesting. I really like progressive rock, and I like progressive metal as well. And so progressive elements to see in songs and bands like this, such as Tool, which is one of the forerunners of alternative and progressive metal, definitely is very exciting. I was waiting for this album for a long time, and while I would say that 10,000 Days is probably my favorite Tool album for a variety of reasons, I would say that Fear Inoculum offers a kind of hope that you haven't really gotten before on some of their previous albums. If at all, there's a degree of hope. There's a sense in which Tool has mellowed out just a little bit, but they haven't lost their edge or intensity or heaviness. Now, the next album that I really like is called In Darkness by Varials. Varials is part of the new hardcore tradition, and I have no idea what their future will hold, as their singer left the band, and the singer was probably the main reason why I was listening to the album and listening to this band. But what do I say about this album? Short of that, wow, it was intense. I mean, there was so much heaviness in this album. And like, I couldn't even describe the kind of vocals that were being sung, like kind of this scream, but also this muffled kind of like feeling. And it was really, really interesting. My favorite song on the album is I Suffocate. And I will admit, I thought that the music video was probably a little bit intense for me, but I thought it was very beautiful the way that they brought it all together with the sound, although beautiful probably isn't the best word. Seeing, I would say harsh or rough, but in a jagged sense. And In Darkness is in and of itself a very dark album. I described to a friend this album as being just songs that continually just pummel you and pound you and don't stop. There's no slowing down. And there really is no slowing down even in some of the softer components of this album, such as Romance and The Love Machine, which I think captured a softer tone, but in a way that leaves you in dread and that leaves you worrying about what is going to happen next. The next album is one that I liked by Unprocessed, and I unfortunately wasn't able to get their album this year, or last year, but I've been listening to them a ton, and there is a lot that I could say about this band, but I will keep it brief so as to keep your interest. I would describe the band as being very progressive in their style. Their song Abandon captures a very beautiful tone, which I would describe something as dun 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 dun. And it captures really what you can do with the guitar, honestly. The way that the Abandon music video opens up, it shows the lead singer playing with the guitar in this really beautiful and creative and free way that you could see. You could see that he was thinking outside of the box in such a remarkable way. And Unprocessed is a really interesting band. I've been listening to them on Spotify, and I find them to be very heavy in certain ways, especially with some of the singing and some of the lines, the riff lines or bass lines. But I would also describe them as being very artistic as well. They capture this beautiful artistic element in their sound. I would describe Fear as capturing a degree of melody as well as that artistic nature. And yeah, I recommend that you check it out. The next album that I also recommend is Fallen Sky, Sudden Sky by Crown the Empire. And while I would describe this band as being maybe a little bit softer than some of these other bands that I've been mentioning, I would describe them as being very melodic in a beautiful way. I really like their song What I Am. It's not necessarily metal in the traditional sense, and some people might not describe it as metal in general because it's a little bit of a softer tone, even compared to some of the heavier yelling moments and screaming moments of Sudden Sky, the song, as well as their song 2020. And overall, this album is really remarkable, and it captures just enough of the metal elements that I like while also having a little bit more straightforward rock. And I really like this album. It's not too demanding, which I think was good for their case, because it encourages you to want to listen to them. They have a very melodic sound throughout the album, and it's only about like 35 minutes, so if you have a shorter attention span, this is something that will more likely keep your interest because it's not as showy in certain ways. It's not as like, I'm going to show off and make all of these songs, and I think that that was one of the strengths of the album. So I encourage you to check it out. The last album on my list is I, The Mask by In Flames. I recently saw them in concert. Actually, I should say I've seen them in concert probably twice over the past year, and I really enjoy their sound. I, The Mask is a continuation of some of what we have seen throughout their career, but if there's anything that I would say about In Flames, it's that their style of music is so incredibly diverse, and they have so many sounds and ideas and styles that they incorporate in their album. And so we go from an almost classic feel from like, I would say the like Pinball Map days of kind of Clayman, and having some of those sounds with the screaming in the song I, The Mask. But I would also describe them as having some some other more experimental, kind of softer, progressive elements that you find in songs like Voices, while you also have the pummeling riffs and the pummeling anthem style of their song I Am Above, which really inspires me personally to be above all of the horrible, horrendous, tormenting things that can bring us down, but that we don't let us bring us down. I really like In Flames, and I think they are a solid band, and I recommend this album for its variety of tones and sounds, and how, even though they are a metal band, they definitely experiment with a lot of different textures, a lot of different layers, and it's what makes them really interesting, and I think worth listening to. And so, yeah, so check them out. I hope that you enjoyed this talk on my favorite albums of the year 2019. Of metal albums, and you could definitely tell that these albums are diverse and they come from different periods of people's creative endeavors, but I definitely recommend all of them. Again, be sure to check out the list below in the description that I will incorporate. And yeah, I hope that you enjoyed this discussion. I'm Phoenix, and thank you for stopping by, and I will see you next time.